Please welcome back Raj Verma, joined by Outreach CEO, Abhijit Mitra.
How are we feeling? After lunch? Good? Yeah? Great, great, great. Abhijit and I first met coming up to about a year ago in
Yeah.
that coffee shop in Los Altos. He had just taken over as the head of product and engineering at Outreach. Outreach and SingleStore, we've been doing business for about, I would say, 3 years, something like that. Great, great customer. And the half-hour meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting because I was just absolutely consumed by Abhijit's just pedigree, if I may say so, in the data space. So I'm not going to steal any of Abhijit's thunder, but just so great to have you here. I know you keep a punishing schedule, and the fact that you agreed to spend this afternoon with me means a lot to me and to all of us. So welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Tell us about your journey with data. Where did it start, the meandering road that it's taken, and where do you find yourself?
So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I joined Outreach a year ago as president of product and technology, and just a few weeks ago, I became the CEO there. Before Outreach, I spent 27 years in enterprise software companies, ServiceNow, SAP, Oracle. I started my career as an engineer, and then engineer, product manager. Some of my colleagues from ServiceNow is right here, Nick. He and I worked on some cool stuff while I was there. So Outreach, for those of you who don't know what it does, it's essentially a platform for salespeople to reach out to their buyers, prospects, get them interested in buying a product, and then orchestrating that entire workflow into closing the deal. So that's what we help salespeople do. We sit on top of a CRM. We are not a CRM, but we are what we call ourselves a sales engagement platform. And sales engagement is a category that we created, and we are number one in that category.
That's great. He's a lot more succinct than I am, so I have a lot to learn from you, Abhijit. We use Outreach, and we are actually fairly happy with it, right, Madhukar? Yeah. As our conversation started or evolved over that coffee, you did talk about how you went from SAP to ServiceNow, started the line. Naturally, we are here to speak more about Outreach. How has your experience through SAP ServiceNow come together, and where do you think you want to take Outreach? And yeah, I'll ask that question, and then how does data play a part in it would be the second part of the question.
So here's the thing. Many people ask me, why did I join Outreach, and why do I see the value of this company and this space in general? So CRM systems have been around for a long time. Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, some of these big players have been around for a while. And what they help salespeople do is essentially log their opportunities and then report on those opportunities. What salespeople have always done for a long time is work outside of the system in tools like email and calendar and spreadsheets and so on and so forth. And Outreach helped to automate all of that in a structured workflow. We invented what's called sequences. And so this is very inspiring for me because what it does is it helps the seller become much more effective. So we actually directly help the seller, the end user of our platform. So Outreach started as a sales engagement platform. And then from sales engagement, we went into what's called conversation intelligence. So sales engagement is around, like, for example, Premal talked about sixth sense, right? So how you research your accounts and contacts and all of that stuff. And then what do you do after that? So what you do after that is you call a customer or you email a customer, or you send a LinkedIn post. And you can do that manually, or you can run a sequence, and that does it for you. And it goes and does all of this stuff for you in an automated way. And then once the customer responds, that's when the sequence ends and you take a call, or you have a meeting, or you have a Zoom call or a video call, right? And then during that call, what Outreach does is it actually helps you in real time understand what the intent is, what is the conversation that's happening, and what should you be saying or not saying. We do call analytics after the call or after the video call based on what was discussed, summarize that. We use a lot of data and predictive AI and generative AI in that. And finally, it helps you work on your deals and close them. So that's what this thing is about. It's essentially a platform that really helps the sellers become a lot more effective through the use of data, through the use of automation, through the use of AI. So that kind of is what we do, and that's where data comes into our story.
That's great. In fact, I remember our partnership started after you guys had just acquired Kaya or
Kaya is something that we had built actually.
built Kaya.
Kaya is very interesting. It's actually Knowledge AI Assistant, KAIA. That's what it is called. And what this thing does is essentially it's a real-time intent decoder. So there's a voice and video stream going on, and within less than 5 milliseconds, it understands exactly what you're talking about, and then what you should be talking about. And then after the call, it gets all of the data in a database, and our database is powered by SingleStore. That's where SingleStore comes in. And then based on that, you can do post-call analytics. We use some of the techniques that you just saw, the gentleman before me present. We use a little bit of RAG. We use a little bit of segmentation, vector DB, to essentially train the model to the use case, the sales use case. And then basically that's what leads to the conversation intelligence.
Your career spanned over 3 decades. How have you seen the evolution of data, and what excites you about data in the coming decades, Abhijit?
So data and AI are very interrelated. I think by now we all know that. So that's not news for us. So for AI to make any sense out of anything, you need some data, right? Otherwise, AI is just 2 letters, A and I. So that's why data is so key. So, and again, like, I'll probably be stating the obvious, but in the beginning, there was analytics, just pure analytics reporting, right? You could do fast queries. And then there was predictive analytics, which is not just looking back, but looking forward and figuring out, hey, if XYZ has happened and the outcome is this, then what could be the outcome that will need these input parameters? So turning it essentially regression analysis. So predictive analytics was, a lot of people actually implemented that. And then with generative AI, we had, what did we have? We have assistive AI. We had co-pilots and assistants. So you're summarizing. There are discussions happening. There are lots of data. You're summarizing that. And now what's happening is agentic AI, where the AI is actually doing the work for you and not just summarizing or assisting you. It's actually doing the work for you. That's the new trend. And for all of this to work, you need a data platform. Without data, it can't do anything, right? So that's where I see data is super important for the evolution of AI.
So the good news is we can replace our sales reps with agents, AI agents. Is that no?
No, that is not.
I'm joking.
That is not the intent, and I don't know if that will ever happen. But what the intent here is to make the sellers more effective, like super sellers. That's what we say. If in every organization you have some people who are really good, and the rest of them are trying to become good. Now, if you empower, everybody with this tooling, then everybody is really good, right? So essentially, you're making your sellers your best seller. That's the whole idea here.
That's very well put. So every seller is your best
Seller.
and that's the enablement tool there, right? And how have you seen the sort of the application development landscape change over time, and what are some of the predictions that you have for databases or application development platforms in the future, or what's your sort of wish list of sorts?
So I think suddenly there's a plethora of technology hitting, I think, all of us. And my wish list is for that to be a little bit more streamlined and structured so that you don't have to put everything together from everywhere. So an example may help to illustrate this. So there are companies who are building platforms for AI agents. There are companies who are building platforms for data cloud. There are companies who are building platforms for transaction systems. There are companies building low-code platform where you can author, workflows and stuff like that. And that's all needed. But when it comes to an end user, a simple end user like a salesperson or a RevOps persona who's trying to make sense out of this and get something done, it is very difficult for them to put all of this technology together and make sense out of it. So that's why I think my wish, and to some extent my desire of what we are doing at Outreach, is to make it simple. So you should you should take the burden, like we should take the burden as vendors on behalf of our end user and on our behalf of our customers and simplify it for them. So customers don't have to think through all of this stuff. That's sort of my wish list and my vision.
Yeah, in fact, this morning, you weren't here this morning. That's what we hear from practically 95% of our customers. Help me simplify the environment, right? And by the way, simplification, of course, has a lot of merits and advantages. What does simplifying this architecture for your development team do for you as outreach?
So one of the examples is how we do our analytics on SingleStore. You've simplified that quite a bit for us, and you're really the expert on that, more than I am. But being able to get data that's fresh, that's instantaneous, you've reduced our query latency like tremendously, actually. So all of that actually has helped our developers build that framework that our customers, for example, the managers, the RevOps persona, the CROs, can use to get instant access to their data.
And by the way, just out of sheer curiosity, what are your sort of end users, CROs? What is their nirvana? What are they asking of you?
So their nirvana, I mean, right now it's a very tough environment for many industries. Technology industry is going through, there's a positive side and negative side, like in the sense that being able to predict your revenue is really tough for CROs. You don't have a good sense of what is really happening in your organization, right? So what the ideal situation for a CRO would be that, hey, I see all these dashboards and pipeline analytics and forecasting, but then when I want to know actually, is this going in the right direction or is this not going in the right direction? I should be able to get access to that insights, which makes me confident that actually I am in the right direction. That's the biggest problem right now for CROs. So one way you can solve that is obviously through drill down analytics. That's one way of solving that. The other way that we do is, for example, that let's say your team is saying that, hey, we're going to forecast so much for the quarter. Okay. So click on that and say, hey, these are the deals that are going through. Okay, great. Then click on that. Okay, these are the conversations that we're happening with our customers. Oh, really? You click on that. This is the exact snippet of conversation that happened, and these are the good things that happened. These are the good things that these are things did not happen. Okay, opportunity for coaching. So that level of inspection is what CROs don't have today. And if you can again make it simple without the cognitive burden of figuring out things going into different places, and just with simple clicks, like get to the bottom of it, I think that will be really helpful for the industry.
Oh, that definitely would be very, very interesting, right? We do this exercise at SingleStore, which is, if we started SingleStore today, how would it be different from SingleStore, 13 years ago? And I know you're not the founder, I'm not the founder of SingleStore either. How do you think outreach would be different if it started today, given AI at the horizon or already here versus 10 years ago?
So again, probably I'm stating the obvious, but to some extent, the advent of generative AI specifically gives us a chance to rethink every workflow in every organization, whether it's outreach, whether it's somebody else, whether it's my ex-company, ServiceNow, where I learned a lot about this. So a lot of these can be rethink. So if I were an engineer or a developer today, and I think many of you are from the technology space like I am, what I would urge you to think is, how can you leverage that technology? How can you leverage data? And how can you leverage the insight that you can gather from generative AI? How can you leverage agentic AI, which actually can do the mundane work for people and make them a lot more productive so that they're focusing their time on the higher level cognitive thinking? How can we reimagine that for every function? I think that's an opportunity that we have now. Looking back, there are only a few, let's say, generative changes that has happened in the industry. SaaS was one of them. Mobile was one of them. Online was one of them. Remember the dot-com days? And AI is one of them. So for us, I think we are very fortunate to be here at this time of history, where I think many of you here in the audience will actually go and create that history for the future.
That's great. So we've got a plethora of different customers here, right, from startups, right, to large organizations, Fortune 10, right? If you're a developer, nonetheless, whether in a Fortune 500 company or at a startup, any advice, any suggestion, any sort of based on your experience? Apart from just get SingleStore and it'll solve all your problems.
Get SingleStore and solve all the problem and buy outreach, and that's it. You don't need to worry about
That's
anything
it.
else.
So we have the answer, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, I would, I know there are a lot of different audience here, but like my son just graduated and he's an engineer. And we have this conversation with him all the time. It's like, dude, you got to really understand AI. And he's like, okay, so what? Like, yeah, I get it, RAG, I get LLMs, I get OpenAI, I get Llama. Okay, so what's the big deal here? The big deal here is whether you're in a startup or whether you're in a Fortune 10 company. You now, as a developer, as an engineer, you now have the power that you never had before. And this power can really help to transform your customers, your end users in the end. So make the most of it. That's what I keep telling my son. And he and I had this conversation over dinner. And he just started his career at ServiceNow actually, and his friends are also into it. So a lot of the younger generation is also, I think, going to take this flag forward for us.
It's very interesting you say that. I was talking to Vinod Khosla about, naturally, OpenAI and all the rest of it. He's an investor. And I said, what's your prediction? There's so much noise around AI that the developer jobs might be at risk, all the rest of it. And he says, I don't actually focus that much on that. It'll sort of work its way out. The opportunity that I see in this world is some of the top developers would be 100x more dangerous in a positive way, more productive with AI than they were. So, you are going to see the era of 1,000x engineers and 10,000x engineers with AI. And that's something that's very exciting to me about AI as well.
It is. It is the same concept that I was talking about. Make every seller your best seller or make them super seller. But every engineer can be a super engineer now. I wish I had that.
He just gave you the marketing tagline, Madhukar, for SingleStore. What excites you about AI in everyday life, and what's your prediction about how we would live our lives 3 to 5 years with AI?
Oh my God, that's a tough one, actually. I mean, I don't know. Autonomous driving, I use that every now and then on my Tesla. Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, it understands my taste. I don't have to figure out which CD I want to listen. CD, oh my God, I'm talking about CDs. I don't know if you guys even know what I'm talking about. So those days are over. The lifestyle has changed for many of us, even without realizing it. And right now, I think we are going in a phase where AI is, to some extent, unproven. I think you said that as well. There's lots of potential. We see a lot of hype, and it could go a lot of places. But would it? Would we trust it? And that we are seeing actually, in a lot of businesses. But once you get used to it, right? As a consumer, as a business user, you won't even realize actually when that happened. It's like the phone, right? If I don't have it here, I'm like, oh, I'm missing something. But when I didn't have it, I never knew about this, right? So it's like social media. If you're not, when we didn't have it, we didn't miss it. But now we have it, we can't live without it. So AI is going to be like that.
Yeah, it'll become part of our
It's part of your everyday life.
Everyday life. And in fact, I often talk about the fact that, I'm sort of on the back nine of my professional career, using a golfing analogy. But the people on the first tee, some of you here, all right, the experiences that you would have to build are for your son, my son, who's a sophomore at Berkeley, etc. And when they come out, their expectation of the apps that they would interface with are so very different,
Very different.
from what our expectations were, what even the millennials' expectation or Gen Z's expectations were. And I mean, just imagine, you would have to, there would be a time in banking, right, where you would actually, in your spatial computing, go into your bank, look like a branch, and the agent who's talking to you has to know everything about you, not only your history, but what did you do in the past hour? What's your mood like, to be able to then be responsive to you? That is the expectation of the guys who are on the first tee right now from an experience standpoint. And the onus is on us, really, as infrastructure providers for that, and as developers in this room, to help build that experience for the next generation. But it'll be a lot of fun. Any final words, Abhijit?
No, I mean, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and this is a fantastic audience. Thank you for listening to me. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Abhijit Mittal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boss, please.